So while I was looking up bolster, I also decided to look up coal scuttle. And a coal scuttle is like a pail that would be used for coal, and it would be kept near a stove. So I just wrote them down like that on my page, because those were two words that I think now I can understand what I was reading a little bit better. So I'd go back to the beginning of that first paragraph where they came up, and let's reread that, because I can really understand it better now that I have all the words in place. So the two brothers went off hand in hand into the wood, and returned in a minute with their arms full of things, such as bolsters, blankets, hearthrugs, tablecloths, dish covers, and coal scuttles. I can understand all those words now. I hope you're a good hand at pinning and tying strings, Tweedledum remarked. Every one of these things has got to go on somehow or other. Alice said afterwards she had never seen such a fuss made about anything in her life. The way those two bustled about, and the quantity of things they put on, and the trouble they gave her in tying strings and fastening buttons, really, they'll be more like bundles of old clothes than anything else by the time they're ready, she said to herself, as she arranged the bolster around the neck of Tweedledee, to keep his head from being cut off. So they're actually wearing these things. They're dressing up in these household items. You know, he added very gravely, it's one of the most serious things that can possibly happen to one in a battle, to get one's head cut off. Remember in Alice in Wonderland, the Queen was always saying, off with their head, off with your head, off with your head. So that remains a fear, apparently, in this Wonderland, in this story. Alice laughed out loud, but she managed to turn it into a cough, for fear of hurting his feelings. Do I look very pale? Said Tweedledum, coming up to have his helmet tied on. He called it a helmet, though it certainly looked much more like a saucepan. Reminds me of how kids play dress-up sometimes. They just wear whatever they can find around the house, which makes sense why they'd have household items. Well, yes, a little, Alice replied gently. I'm very brave, generally, he went on in a low voice. Only today I happen to have a headache. And I've got a toothache, said Tweedledee, who had overheard the remark. I'm far worse off than you. Then you better not fight today, said Alice, thinking it a good opportunity to make peace. We must have a bit of a fight, but I don't care about going on long, said Tweedledum. What's the time now? Tweedledee looked at his watch and said 4:30. Let's fight till 6 and then have dinner, said Tweedledum. Very well, the other said rather sadly, and she can watch us. Only, you better not come very close, he added. I generally hit everything I can see when I get really excited. And I hit everything within reach, cried Tweedledum, whether I can see it or not. Alice laughed. You must hit the trees pretty often, I should think, she said. Tweedledum looked around him with a satisfied smile. I don't suppose, he said, there will be a tree left standing, for ever so far round by the time we've finished. All about a rattle, said Alice, still hoping to make them a little ashamed of fighting for such a trifle. I shouldn't have minded it so much, said Tweedledum, if it hadn't been a new one. I wish the monstrous crow would come, thought Alice. There's only one sword, you know, Tweedledum said to his brother. But you can have the umbrella. It's quite as sharp. Only we must begin quick. It's getting as dark as it can. And darker, said Tweedledee. It was getting dark so suddenly that Alice thought there must be a thunderstorm coming on. What a thick black cloud that is, she said, and how fast it comes. Why, I do believe it's got wings. It's the crow, Tweedledum cried out in a shrill voice of alarm, and the two brothers took to their heels and were out of sight in a moment. Alice ran a little way into the wood and stopped under a large tree. It can never get at me here, she thought. It's far too large to squeeze itself in among the trees, but I wish it wouldn't flap its wings so. It makes quite a hurricane in the wood. It makes quite a hurricane in the wood. Here's somebody's shawl being blown away. Here's somebody's shawl being blown away.